Hello and welcome to the Eddie Conversation Podcast. My name is Eddie Vigil. This is episode number 99, and joining me today is Shin. I think of you as a director, filmmaker, but how do you think of yourself?
So everyone's a filmmaker in this industry, especially in LA. So I try not to present that as my first thing anymore. I'm just curious about like what everyone's lives as a whole is. So I just kind of people roll their eyes a little bit but when I say this, but I'm like, yeah, I'm a person trying to live life and enjoy life. I'm a father, of 2 daughters. I'm a husband, but also a filmmaker, director, storyboard artist, animator. I don't know. Also a electric unicycle racer. I do motorcycle track days. So I think, of myself as a more like complete person outside of just filmmaking. Because I think, as pretentious as it sounds, like life is an art too.
I think that is lovely.
Thank you.
But I think there's a good lesson to take away from that, because I know when doing the podcast and I have to put a title on the video, it's like Sung Shin, and then you kind of like, I can't, it goes off the screen if you just put all the things.
Right.
I could just put like
person,
not AI.
Yeah, director's fine.
Director. Yeah. But there's a lot more to you than, of course.
Of course. Yeah.
But it's nice that you don't feed into the categorization of the one thing.
Yeah, and we've had conversations about this during lunch, and you could be a cool filmmaker, but if you're a crappy person, I don't really care about you that much. I hope you improve.
Good outlook. Starting off with, that's great.
Yeah, my philosophy.
That's great.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, being a good person, and we can jump into what that means.
Okay.
What does that mean?
Well, I mean, obviously everyone's complex, and then if you like had a God's eye view of everything I've done in my life, I'm sure there's a lot of things that I don't want to be, seen. And there's stuff like everyone's hiding, and there's mistakes that we all want to grow from. But I think maybe being a good person is, at least at this moment in life, if I see you and meet you, you're trying to treat people respectfully. And since we're talking about filmmaking, like if you're on set, you're not like yelling at people, you're collaborative. You don't treat people as like tools, or like if you're in a directing position especially, or like maybe a DP position, you're not yelling at actors. Yeah, and you're also like invested in people's future, not just for that specific project while you have them. That's what I think.
And I'm sure that's just I'm sure there's a lot more to it, but that's a good start. And I like what you're saying.
Awesome.
I agree. I like it. Okay, so before I do want to give some foundation for, I guess, our relationship. We've known each other for I don't know how many years now, technically. I met you, I think the first year I was here in LA.
Okay.
Yeah, so I probably 2019. Did we meet in 2019? Does that sound right?
I'm really bad with dates, so I'll have to rely on you for that. But we did meet at a making a film event.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was year one for me. So we'll just say we've known each other since then. We got to meet through, like he says, a making a film event, and that was a whole thing we don't have to jump into. But
no, let's not. No.
But yeah, something about meeting you there, and I'm almost trying to remember specifics about like how I felt about you, but for some reason, I wanted to connect more and keep in touch, and you seemed like good people, and I recall helping on a short film of yours. I
Yes.
think I came on as like a first AD.
Yeah,
think.
you were first AD on that short. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. And that was fun to be a part of and see kind of like this project you were cooking up at the time and the different elements that were involved and getting to see a lot of the people that you had brought on and that sort of thing. And it had been some time since we had checked in on each other and
Right.
you floated back up recently and it's been nice to reconnect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that film is interesting because, like, first of all, I thank you so much for agreeing to help me out on it, and I just have this image because it was at um, kind of like a communal working situation where we shot like a big scene. There was like a big fight scene in like the lobby of an office space, and we also I think shot an elevator scene, but I just remember you like just walking down the stairs and turning back. And it was such a cinematic shot for me in my memory. I'm like, I made through this day because of him, So there's like a medium close up of you in my brain, like just like lodged in there. So like I always appreciated that.
Oh, for sure. No problem. Yeah, no, happy to support and be there for that. That's kind of funny that you have a cinematic vision of a specific moment there.
Yeah.
Since then, I just want to we'll dive into specifics, and I do want to hear about your overall full life and
Okay.
other different aspects to what brings you to who you are today. But just for those at home who are less familiar, I do want to highlight, that because I know, okay, as a director, you sent me your latest projects and made sure to highlight what you had worked on because I wanted to make sure I was hitting all the things that you were proud of and all the projects that I wasn't aware of everything you had worked on. So
Oh, really? Okay.
yeah. So especially the Star Trek Prodigy, which I didn't even know the show existed.
Oh, okay.
And it was cool to hear that because you had mentioned directing this and I was like, how did I miss this?
Yeah.
But you directed one episode in season 1 and an episode in season 2. Is that correct?
No, I selected a couple for you to check out if you had time, but I
Oh.
directed 16 episodes over
Dang.
those two seasons.
Gotcha.
Let me correct that. I co-directed some of those of the 16. I got full directing credit, but some of them were done solo, but some of them were also done with another director. They had to
Okay.
either leave the project or some situation arose.
Okay. So that said a lot more than I was aware of.
Yeah.
Yeah, you highlighted one from season 1, you highlighted one from season 2.
Yeah.
And I went and I I didn't have a subscription to Netflix, so
No worries.
I went and I got one so I can watch.
Oh, wow.
Watch the episodes.
You're well prepared.
So I watched the 2 that you highlighted, and we can talk about that, and we'll jump into that too. But you also just are coming off of a director workshop sort of project too.
Yes, but I do consider it my film because I invested. I co-wrote it. I can get into that a little more, but I co-wrote it, and also I'm pretty proud of it. So it really worked out, and so I consider it one of my babies. Yeah.
Yeah, you're talking about the one I just mentioned.
Yeah, the final test.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense, and we can dive into that as well.
Cool.
And then I know as far as even the one that I initially first AD'd for you, I know that one. We can talk about the journey of that one.
Sure.
And then there's another project. It was called, I think, CMM, right?
Oh, it's called I Conjured My Mom for Her Birthday.
Yeah.
Not a clickbait. It's a long title.
Yes, and that was a short film. That one I had seen before, and it was good to. I rewatched it.
You gave me some. You might have given me some notes while I was working on it. I don't recall actually,
Maybe.
But I do send my stuff your way a lot while I'm working on things. So
So we can dive into all or some, or we'll see what we hit on
Yeah,
today's
sure.
thing. But let's see. I do. Let's start. Okay, here's what I like to do. I like to, being that we brought those up, it would be nice to hear more context on the most recent to
Sure.
kind of bring us to a little bit more of the now, and then we can dive back and look at and kind of work our way back to the present. But yeah,
Sure.
yeah, tell the people about what you signed up for, and then how much, and then I can ask questions about the project itself too.
Okay, cool. So I'll give a little shout out to something called the LA Directors Lab. It's run by this lovely lady named Pam. She's a director, but also a first AD by trade. But she started a workshop where directors can kind of work on their craft, which I think is pretty cool. A lot of times when you take classes or workshops, it's just usually lecture based. But like here, you're basically getting to make a film. And I signed up for this one because it's been a minute since I've made a short, and basically all the resources that you need, or most of them at least, are provided for you. Like they have a first, I'm sorry, a director of photography on set. This specific one that I attended was called a stunt workshop, and it intrigued me because I've done my own stunts in the short you helped out, Rosgami, but because I have a martial arts background, but I always wanted to work with like a stunt coordinator of like a professional caliber. So this director's workshop kind of helped me do that. So they provide the stunt coordinator, which like his like pedigree is kind of crazy. He's super humble and funny at the same time. I'm like I told him you're a legend, and he told me, I'm just a normal guy, but he's worked on like Black Panther, and like if you check out his reel, it's just insane. He has like wires on him, and he's getting hit by taxis and um, like rolling over and tumbling. And then, to be honest, I don't know if he'll ever see this, but I was a little intimidated by that kind of caliber. But he was super professional on set. Let me hold off on that for a second because I'm continuing to like list like what else the workshop provided. So, stunt coordinator, director of photography, they even had like first ACs, second ACs, all the light people to help with lighting, and they had a first AD. They had a light crafts. You have to provide your own lunch, but yeah, we food is very important in these scenes. So like that's another topic, but yeah, so they provided, and they also like casted the actors for you and provided a partial script, which was interesting. I have thoughts about that, but like they gave you 2 pages, and then as a director, you're supposed to come up with the ending. You cannot exceed a page, but it was an interesting exercise because whatever you write affects the rest of the story, can affect the rest of the story very deeply. And I think I was pretty successful at that. Yeah, so I got to shoot the short, and I'm gonna pass it off to you to see if you have any questions because like I just came off it, so I learned a lot and also experienced a lot. So I'm just curious, like if you had any
Okay,
thoughts.
sure. Yeah, I mean, I have lots of thoughts. Regarding that project specifically, there's thoughts and questions about. I guess I'll point out what I like about the situation in general,
Okay.
where like you said, you were kind of like my interpretation
Mm-hmm.
is you were looking for, I'll call it like you're, I was gonna say an excuse, but you wanted to make a short film, you wanted to be in the director chair, you wanted to maybe based on what we talked about before a little bit, not like shaking off rust, but just rewarming up the directing and just have some fun and do it again. And this the environment, like yeah, they give the location,
Yeah.
they
It's
they
location.
they do the work of like you said, they get you your camera team and all the support. So it kind of like takes a lot of burden off of like making something. You're like, okay, cool. I show up and they provide a lot of stuff, and it that really helps with getting the ball rolling. Is like, okay, I'm there. There's a lot of help being given
Yeah,
to an
absolutely.
extent, which is great for that. And I'm yeah, you've talked to me a little bit about how it was working with your cinematographer, but being that you kind of like you set this up with saying that you have like a martial arts background, and something you're really excited about was working with a essentially a working stunt person,
Yeah,
or stunt coordinator.
yeah.
So I want to hear about expectations that you had, and then like you mentioned a little bit about feeling intimidated by this person's pedigree. How early on did you know who you were paired up with, and like how
So
did it go?
I got the last spot of the workshop. I when I found out about it, my algorithm knows me really well, so it knows where I'll spend my money. Um, so like when I found out about it, I'm like, okay, you guys said you might have a spot. Can you sign me up? And then they didn't respond for a while, and they're like, the last person is not responding. Can you sign up like today? So it was like, I don't know, like 2 days before the workshop or something that I found out that I got in. You also have to apply for it, by the way. They ask for like two samples or something like that, and they ask for your credits and that sort of stuff. So like that, but that said, I'm veering off topic just slightly here. But like, if you're a first time director, I think some of them were. So I don't think you should feel intimidated about applying. It's just a really great environment. I met some really cool people there. But to get back to your question, yeah. So like, I found out that I was paired with him maybe like a couple days before the actual workshop itself. So I had a lot of like, digging and, you know, researching their backgrounds and like their reels. I'm talking about the stunt guy, the DP, and also the actors and
Okay,
stuff like that.
they shared with you your whole team essentially before you got there.
Well, they did, but I had to do the legwork and asking for their reels and like, researching online and stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay, so that's where I'm guessing that's where the how would you describe the feeling of okay, like you highlighted the specific stunt coordinator you were going to get to work with, and finding like doing your digging on him and seeing like
Right.
okay, he's worked on Black Panther, his reel is like super badass,
Yeah.
and the intimidation starts hitting. Like what kind of thoughts are you having there? Like what were you like? What was the before you realize how chill and fun and like supportive this person was? Like what was the
Are you talking directly about my specific relationship with him or like as a workshop in as a whole?
maybe you and your relationship with him directly?
So I think I mentioned the intimidation a little bit, but like I was more concerned about the story because I felt like the story wasn't work. Okay, I have to be careful here. The story was functional, but I had to bring something to it that makes it special. Because the way it's set up, I think it turns out I didn't know this that like other work groups also get to choose the script. In my specific workshop, because there were three groups. I'm sorry. Like, there's three workshops, and within each workshop, there's several groups. In my workshop, I was the only one with the script, but it turns out during the screening that other workshops have chosen the script quite a bit, actually. So I was actually mostly concerned with the script and like the character and finding complexity in the characters. So, which is interesting because like by finding that, I made a lot of the problems that I was facing work. For example, my actress. You've seen the short, right?
I've seen it, yeah.
Okay, so it's like a four. She was 4'11", and the actor was 6'4", and he also has like a SWAT background, and like he was trained in like all aspects of like police, like every like thing involved in like police work he's done. That's another level of intimidation. But I think what it is that as soon as you meet them, um, you realize how down they are to work with you. So that intimidation kind of wears off. But that again, even though I mentioned intimidation, I know my role as a director, which is to bring the group together and also keep the story intact. And so, yeah, like I wasn't too worried about it. But going back to the character stuff, um, like the I'm gonna delve a little deeper on it because I'm getting into it. She was 4'11" and he's 6'4", but because I found like a background that is dark and emotional and it connects the two. Please see the film and then ask.
Where can they see it?
I'll send a link to you, and then you can probably
link in the descriptions.
Yeah. But it provided like an emotional core, and from that, which is cool, because what I learned is that the stunt coordinator works from character. So after I described like after we worked out like the characters' backgrounds and where they're coming from and where they're going with the actors and actresses, I asked the actors to like tell the stunt coordinator about their characters and where they're coming from, and he constructed the choreography not just like physically but also like emotionally and psychologically with them. So it just, and it made it work. If you see the film, it works. And like one guy who was like the production assistant, but also helped with set design for me in my specific group, and he was also like a warehouse manager. But like he said, when he saw my actresses or actor and actress, he thought like good luck. But after seeing the shoot on film, I mean, after seeing like what was going on the set, he was like, "That looks really good," and like you made it work and stuff like that. So, yeah, I'm really proud of this film.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is you're taking elements that initially, like, even you're even saying that other people were warning you. It was like, good luck out there. This is looking a little tricky, and kind of using that to your advantage and actually capitalizing, and it's fun to take a challenge and turn it into something that actually works. That feels really good.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've directed so many things yourself, as you know. Like one of the things my actors came to me with was like, "I'm a 4'11". Is this going to be a problem?" But like instantly, I thought, "No, that's cool because like you have immediate contrast, and then if you can make it work, that's what will make this short set itself apart, even visually." I can say this without raising my film above the other films that chose the script, because visually you see the difference, you see the contrast, so it's different just even from that point.
Yeah, I know. I'm curious to hear about watching the other ones and seeing the different choices and the different endings and all that.
Yeah,
But for me, watching it, and you had given me the heads up already on the size difference of your
right.
two actors, so it was interesting to see, because I didn't know what the story was, and I didn't know what the full context of what you're working with. So I was like, okay, let me watch this, knowing that there was some questions up front with, like, is this going to work? And the story, which you haven't really talked about yet, but it opens up with the woman who you already mentioned is smaller, and then she kind of comes in, and you hear the actor guy off.
Jay, the character's name is Jay.
Jay.
Yeah.
So Jay off screen, I think, is talking about like, all right, this is your final test.
Yeah.
And we're setting up the stakes here for like, do you know what you're doing here? And she's like, yeah, it's my final test, and they're set up to like, she's got to, like, they're trapped in the space, and she has to kind of like defeat him to, it almost seems like graduate or work her way through something. It's kind of vague on what the full context is.
Mm-hmm.
But it is fun to see the stakes the stakes to me like meant a lot more seeing like, okay, this guy is really intimidating just size wise for her. Like
Absolutely.
how is she gonna get out of this, and how like that's kind of fun for the audience side. It's like, oh my gosh, is she gonna be able to pull this off?
Yeah.
Like that's fun.
I'm glad you felt that way. Thank you.
Yeah. So I could definitely see how that plays to a benefit too, and like you said, making it work, and
Mm-hmm.
and I could also see it being really fun for like the stunt coordinator, because like it offers a challenge for them too. It's like, let's really dive into this. How do we make this make sense? And that seems like a fun challenge.
So he sent us a previs. Actually, it wasn't. He didn't do the choreography on the previs. I believe some other stunt coordinator did it, and it had different actors, not my actors. But we worked off that previs. And there was a scene where the guy character was wailing punches while, like, mounting on the female character. And my actor laughed and he's like, yeah, if I punch her once, she's done. There's no way. And I even had him having a background in Taekwondo. I just wanted to see how hard his punch was. So I had my hand out and I asked him, can you punch me like at half strength? And then he punched me. And he said, yeah, that's about 50%. I'm like, oh my God, I'd get knocked out with one of these.
Yeah.
So he was correct, but like this stunt coordinator was so down, like you said, to like work with the challenges. And if you see the film, like it's believable. And on set, by the way, like she busted his lip twice.
Oh no! Oh no!
It was on during rehearsal on one of the takes, and I was like, oh man, I wish I had all the lights, all the lights here. And you're right.
I mean, that's the struggle of like working with, because these actors were similar to like, it's a workshop for you as a director. It's also a workshop for these actors.
Absolutely.
In the same position. So, I'm very minimally familiar with working with stunts, and I know the accidents tend to happen when you're working with the lesser experienced performers, because they're not as aware of their bodies and how close things are, and that's where the accidents happen. Like the better you get, the more experienced you get, ideally people aren't actually getting hit or hurt while making this kind of stuff, but it makes sense that some stuff happened.
Yeah, the stunt coordinator said something interesting, which was like, next time that happens and she hits you in the lip, keep going, which was interesting. But that said, I want to slightly segue into one lesson I learned during the workshop, which was, since I was in a workshop setting, I listened to the stunt coordinator's advice because I wanted to like learn as much as possible. It was a group of stunt coordinators, but I got to work with one of them. But their main advice was, let's shoot the stunts first. And then jokingly during Q&A, I didn't really do this, but like jokingly during the Q&A at the screening, I rolled my eyes when he said that, because as you know, as a director, every department wants their thing to be most primary and most important. But I believe after the workshop, it worked out to our benefit. One of their biggest pitches was that like we never have enough time for the fight, so it works out for the schedule. But I also feel like when you have such a big thing to do on set, I feel like it affects your production. Like psychologically, it's like this behemoth that's just like lying underneath the water or whatever. So like if you take care of that monster first, then you can get into what is what most directors consider like more important, like the lines and stuff like that.
Story.
Yeah. Obviously, the fight itself is part of the story, and dialogue happens there as well. So that's just that's really important for the story. You can't just like separate that from the rest of it. But I found it tremendously helpful. So like as much as possible, I think I'd like to like implement this process. I'd also like to point out that of the two groups that got the most shots in the workshops. I was one of them, and we got 21 shots within a span of an hour and 15 minutes.
Dang. That's a
Yeah,
lot.
that's a lot. So that's one thing I learned that I can do as
Whoa.
well. So, yeah.
Yeah. When you say that, this is a little bit in the weeds,
Okay,
but
yeah.
I imagine the reason you're able to do that is because it was one setting. The
Yeah,
light was set. Like
yes.
once the lighting was set, you can kind of like, I don't know how much tweaking was done in between each setup, but I imagine ideally to move that fast, you light it to work for mostly everything, and you can tweak on stuff. But yeah, not
Yeah,
having to adjust lighting and locations and all that kind of stuff really makes the speed possible, especially in that kind of setting with like stunts and stuff.
absolutely. And this you're aware as well. And whenever like people ask for advice in directing and stuff, like they don't know this until they gain experience. But like you know, um, changing lenses, like and I can't think of other examples right now. Or the thing I was going to mention is I kept everything handheld because it works for the story, but like also every time you put sticks down, it takes time, or you put a dolly down, like that takes time. So like that's a big like indie lesson. Like if you have to shoot fast. So yeah, I was aware of these things, and I know during like so we kept everything on a 20 millimeter like wide lens, and the DP had like a great idea that like your approach is cool, but why don't we save one shot and like in an important story moment like use a zoom lens. And I thought that was a brilliant idea, and we got the shot, but I wasn't able to use it because like the actress's eyes when she realizes or she has like a moment of like awakening or whatever you call it. Like she was looking down in the camera, and you really wanted to see her eyes, so I just kept it all in
Oh,
the
I see, I
20.
see.
But it worked. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, what I'm hearing, like you said, it's kind of lessons from your directing experience
Yeah.
is and this is stuff that might not be intuitive up front, and I definitely understand that where it's like as a director gaining understanding of what you're asking for, how much time it's going to take, especially when you know you have a short window. Up front, you have to be thinking about, okay, you have to like understand all the shots you need
Yeah.
and be able to be like, all right, how do we do this in an hour and a half?
Yeah.
And like, how can I make this easier and possible versus, yeah, there's asks that could really hurt that and actually,
Yeah.
and I'm sure, I don't know if you've been on sets like this, but I'm on set as a script supervisor a lot, and I hear the plans up front, and I'm just like, I don't see how we're gonna get everything down,
Mhm.
but yeah,
As a script supervisor, like aside from your directing, sorry to put you
no, it's
on the
good.
spot. I just always curious about like your experiences and you know what you do. But like, do you have any leeway to tell the first AD this is a lot of shots? Um, it's hard for me to keep track of all this.
As a script supervisor, because again, just to reiterate, I do have first AD experience too, like we
Right,
mentioned.
absolutely.
I first AD'd 2 features as a first AD, and I first AD'd essentially myself as a director on my own
Yeah,
features.
which is insane.
So it is crazy. So when I am script supervising, like timing is kind of intuitive for me. The issue isn't communicating with the first AD that this is a lot of shots. It's normally like me and the first AD both understand this. Like this
This is a lot. It's a big ask.
Yeah, they're trying their best to reassure the director that we'll do what we can, and I'll push as hard as I can, and this is what we have to do to make this happen. Meanwhile, I can decode that into like this is really unlikely and we're going to have to make adjustments at lunch, or,
Gotcha.
they'll eventually see how long this is taking.
Yeah.
But it's hard to explain that sometimes to a director up front they don't, if they're newer or greener, and have less experience, then it's kind of, you just have to let them experience it. It's like, okay, well, hopefully they'll get it through repetition and their own just seeing it. But yeah, normally me and the first AD are on the same page with with that, and it's the director that it's hard. Like, is it really that helpful? Like, from the director position, like it feels like, I imagine as a director, a lot of different people are coming to you and saying, this is really ambitious and I don't know if we can do this all. Like, that's, as a director, it's almost
you don't want to hear that.
Yeah, it's almost our job to put our team in positions to push further than they're comfortable with. Like, that seems almost like a part of the job. Like, let's elevate this above what we think we can do. But it's still tricky when it's a director with lesser experience. Yes. They're like, well, you're asking. Yeah, they won't respond well if you just tell them up front. It's not going to be helpful.
I mean, obviously, you want to come up with solutions. Like, can we combine these shots? I was just curious, as a script supervisor, with your so many numerous experiences directing your own stuff and first ADing and stuff, like how much leeway you had with that. But
I mean, those thoughts are definitely going through my mind as a script supervisor. Once the director establishes what they want, and let's say, talking about your action sequence, for instance, I mean, the stunt coordinator they're usually really good at shot listing and understanding all the moments that are needed once you set that up. But in other sequences, the script supervisor tends to be the one that's kind of understanding the coverage. And once you say, oh, I want a close-up of the character looking at this thing on the ground, I'm already automatically thinking we're going to need the reverse of that to see.
And so do you approach the first AD? So I thought the first AD would be, because you've been on more feature-length settings and stuff. So I thought traditionally the first AD would be keeping track of the coverage and stuff like that.
Yeah, it depends.
Oh, okay.
It depends.
But your mind's already in it, and it's like a collaboration, and you're you guys are both aware. It seems like you guys are on the same page usually.
Yeah, I would argue that my mind is more on the reverse shot coverage. Like, I want things to cut together well, and I want things to make sense in the edit.
Okay.
So I'm thinking about the edit.
Yeah.
And the AD is thinking about completing a shot list that has most likely been predetermined or talked about. I'm thinking about things that aren't even on the shot list sometimes, with okay, they're introducing this shot, which for this to work in the edit, we're probably going to need this other shot that isn't on the shot list. And the AD may be thinking about that, or they may not. This is probably something I'm going to have to whisper into the director's ear, or kind of bring up hey, before we move on, we might want this other thing. Do you guys want this shot too? Mm-hmm. And try to factor that into those. I'll whisper to the AD and make sure we're all on the same page.
Yeah. So I'm slowly stealing your role.
No, it's good.
And we're making it.
It's good. This is a conversation.
No, absolutely. I love hearing about your experiences and learning from you.
So going back to. Okay, I'll kind of, this is not necessarily a segue, but I'll say that shooting action is very specific. Shooting an action sequence isn't necessarily as intuitive, I feel, as shooting a dialogue scene of two people talking at a diner or something. We've seen a lot more of that, and it's easier to comprehend from a newbie director standpoint, or even me, that okay, it's easy, it's more understandable and intuitive on how to shoot that scene. But an action sequence, where to put the camera, what moments to capture and highlight, and how to shoot them, and especially movement in the frame. When I was watching Star Trek Prodigy, the season 2 episode that you had highlighted.
Was that the fight one?
That was there was a fight sequence in that. So as I was watching that, I'm like, okay, well he's directed, and like you said, you have the martial arts background, and even on the short that we had worked on before too. Like I'm wondering how this latest project felt and how you approach an action sequence and how much you're bringing to the table for this one specifically
Right.
too, and how you came up with, like you said, it was okay. I don't know. I don't want to get too ahead of it, but how do you approach the like action sequences like that?
So I leaned into the stunt coordinator a lot. It was cool because, so like I have a lot of experience in action adventure in my animation background. We literally choreograph everything, and like we're drawing all the poses. We're drawing references from like the great action sequences in film, and then like coming up with our own and choreographing it and like editing it as like a storyboard sequence. So like I'm pretty familiar with all that. So yeah, again, I just wanted to see what the stunt coordinator was capable of like bringing to the table, and it was actually pretty cool because, like I said, like we worked off the previs, and I can kind of like chime in and here and there and be like, oh, wouldn't this be great if this happened? But not much really. He came up with a lot of the choreography. So I actually enjoyed that aspect because like choreography is fun, but also it's really time consuming if you, especially if you're like drawing every like pose and stuff like that. So it was kind of cool just seeing it all happen in like one day, and we have the choreography done. Whereas like if I was doing a choreography in an animation, it might take like 2 weeks for like a big sequence, or even longer for like a bigger sequence, like an Act Three fight or something like that, like a big Marvel action fight or something like that. Like you see in like Captain America or something, because like in animation they try to squeeze that stuff into every episode. But
Yeah.
well, not in Star Trek. It's a little calmer, depending on where we are in the story. But yeah, so I was leaning into the stunt coordinator to come up with that. Just on a side note, I thought it was really cool that on camera everything is like wider in motion. So like you like really play to the camera instead of like punching straight, you kind of like punch wider so the camera can see it and stuff like that. So even more exaggerated than what I thought it would be. So that was cool to learn. And yeah, so like I was pretty confident with what I'm capable of the action sequence. That said, I know I only had an hour and 15 minutes to shoot like 2.5 pages. So I kept the strategy really simple, which was this is funny because like you mentioned coverage, and the sun coordinator mentioned coverage, but I pre planned it in my head. Um, because so the way I started with a master shot, and I knew I was only gonna use a big moment of the throw on the wide, and everything else was gonna be done in a oneer, um, shot from one point of view and then like over the shoulder of the other point of view, and that I was gonna cut it together, edit it. Um, um, it was just funny because like he's like you might like it, so I listened to him, and then I'm like, okay, we're running out of time, and it's not like we're not even capturing it on the camera because the characters were going off screen and stuff like that. So I'm like, you know what? Let's just do the wide. That's the one moment where I felt like where I did kind of stick to my guns just to stick to the schedule and stuff like that. But yeah, I felt pretty confident about it, and like you said, in some ways it's coming back to it. But it was just reassuring because I met a couple directors on at the workshop whom is it whom or
I don't
who
know.
are kind of newer, and they were mentioning how anxious they were about getting the shot list and stuff. But I mean, obviously, I had to do a couple breathing exercises here and there, but like I felt very calm and capable, and I knew exactly what the shots I wanted. I storyboarded it in my head, and like had a shot list. I knew exactly how it was gonna cut together. That said, a little coverage helps because like I planned it almost to the letter of like, okay, I'm gonna use this dialogue from here and to here to this for this shot and nothing more. But like I did have just a little overlap, and I ended up using that coverage. So I think it's good to have a little leeway. And I'm talking a lot here because like you know I'm passionate about the craft. But like I don't think it's always the most. It's like you're the best director if you're the most efficient or something like that. Because I just recently watched Sidney Lumet's Dog Day Afternoon, and the way he works, I freaking love that film. And the way he works is, he's an actor's director, and he shoots a lot. And I guess he has like three different, for the lack of better expression, like tracks, like of like different takes and they do a lot of improvisations and stuff like that. And he in some ways finds the film in the edit. And honestly, that's one of the. I think it might go up in my top 10 now because I just love that film so much. And I think it's like 50 years old. Just on a side note, I got to see Al Pacino live as he did a Q&A for this film. And I try not to have heroes anymore because, they can let you down and stuff like that. But honestly, my heart swelled up seeing Michael Corleone in person. And,
sure.
and I mean, if I have heroes, like he's a cinematic hero. And yeah, so I feel like if you have to be efficient, like knowing what you want is important. But at the end of the day, the other method might be better. Like
Yeah.
for finding, I guess it depends on what you're going for and what results you're aiming for.
No, that's a good point. Is what I'm hearing is it's kind of like arsenal, like a toolbox arsenal.
Yeah.
Is like how many different environments or circumstances can you show up for?
Yeah.
Is what it sounds like. 'Cause sometimes, like I'll say, ideally, we do have time.
Yeah.
And we're not trying to cram 20 shots into an hour and a half.
No.
In the workshop, or our shoot gives us a week to shoot that same action sequence. You can really dial in and isolate and focus on like very specific stuff and really take the time and do whatever. Like, I don't know, the options expand with time. But yeah, when you are pressed for time, which inevitably is going to happen when making a film, due to like the sun is going down and we're shooting our exterior scene, and it's like, okay, there's things outside of our control. But yeah, I was thinking about, you mentioned that directing style of that's an interesting way. I've never necessarily tried, but I am curious about with like you mentioned how this director shot a lot for that movie.
Yeah.
And was probably like, okay, this is a scene, but let's try it where you react like this. Let's try it where you react like this. Let's try it like this. And you just get all these options and you find it later.
Yeah.
Which my internal systems fight that a little bit.
Well, I'm curious, like as an editor, right? Because you don't want to go through all that footage.
No, as a planner.
I gotcha.
I like the idea of being a director that has, for more or less, a clear vision of what they're trying to accomplish and what kind of feeling they're trying to evoke from a certain scene. And going in there, trying all this stuff, to me it feels like, wait, do I even know what I'm like? What am I looking for here?
I see.
It seems kind of weird to me, but because I did hear, I think Juno was a similar movie that they did that too. I remember hearing an interview, maybe I think Jason Bateman's in that movie, and he plays the guy that Juno, like the older guy to Juno. I forget the relationship. I've only seen it like once, but somebody was asking Jason Bateman how he felt about the way his character is portrayed in that movie, and asking him about his decisions, and he's like, quite honestly, we shot so many different variations of all the scenes. He didn't know where it was going to end up in the edit. They were just trying all this stuff. So I was like, wait, that's an interesting way to shoot a film. But it does seem It does seem like an interesting exercise to me to dive into.
Um, again, so what I think about that is that he has like 3 weeks of rehearsals, which is amazing. So I think they do find a lot of direction during those rehearsals. And then like a lot of like epiphany comes on set. But even Al Pacino mentioned, which I thought was interesting, was that so he found the character, but like sometime later he came back and the character flew out of him. He couldn't speak the same way and stuff like that. And he couldn't. So I didn't get a chance to ask him the question. So what did you do? Obviously, you had to shoot some dialogue and do some acting for the reshoots, like when they needed these shots. So like it's cool that we know that it flew out of him, but like, so what did you do, and adjust? Or maybe they just used those shots that didn't work. But I feel like he does, like the director has a vision, but he is flexible enough to know that there is magic that happens on set between actors and during improv and like when the characters are interacting and stuff like that. Um, and Coppola said this recently, but like, or I think he's always said this, but some directors think like the best directors are DPs, or they have a strong visual sense and whatnot. But like, the way Coppola put it was actually the best directors. If you look at the history of cinema, obviously I have more delving into like learning about cinema, but like that's a different topic. But he was saying they're actors that make the best directors. And also attended a workshop by Michael Goy and Patrick. I don't know his last name. I'm sorry. It starts with an H, but one worked. They're both DPs that became directors, and one's the exec producer on Avatar: The Last Airbender live action, and the other person is exec producer, I believe, on Bosch. Is that how you say that TV show name?
I'm not sure.
Okay, but anyway, it was interesting because they come from a very visual background, but they entrust their DPs to come up with most, or they entrust their DPs. I'm sure they have input on like how they want the framing and stuff, but they call themselves actors directors. And one thing that they said stuck to me was if the actors are not doing, like, basically if they're not connecting on set, what are we all doing there?
Yeah.
So I think that, and in some ways I'm like kind of like expanding on what you said. I think it's important to have a vision, but like if we're allowed the space to dream, like it's also important to kind of explore what happens in that space. That I feel like this is getting pretentious, but like I feel like that space where the actors are exploring with improvisation and like during rehearsal and stuff is like part of that like subconscious that like David Lynch like kind of talks about a lot. Um, yeah, so I would love to kind of play in that space as well, even though I have ideas about what I want and stuff like that.
Yeah, I like it. It
Awesome.
would be fun to allocate some time for that for sure. That does sound nice. Oh, shucks, I forgot what I was gonna say.
So like while you're thinking of that, what I thought about Dog Day Afternoon. So I watched it. The first time I thought saw it was at school, at Cal Arts with a bunch of other students during like a Friday night or something like that. We're eating like, Five Guys like peanuts on the side or something like that. But it was interesting seeing it in a full theater, and it's so funny, and the pacing is just constant, and like you're not bored at any point, which was like so interesting to me because like even 50 years later, not only is it topical, but like pacing wise, it works for the modern audience. And like so like it just reminded me of like the kind of films I want to make, and like not that they're like these like big like actor focused. I do want to focus on actors, but like not these like big actor only focused films. But like my point is that hold on a second, I lost my train of thought. Basically, you can't bore the audience. Like, and I feel like at the expense of trying to be too artsy, um, I feel like a lot of films nowadays bore the audience. And if a film from 50 years ago can still like keep pacing and tension and drama and comedy and all of that now, like we have no excuse to do that. And like when I say bore the audience, it doesn't mean um like when you're watching Dune, there's too much space in between shots or something like that. I feel like something like Dune works because it has such like striking visuals, and then like the audience isn't bored. Like you're looking at something that's so impactful, and there's like the score that carries you through to the next scene. And like when you're on a shot of Timothy Chalamet, um I have thoughts about him, but like I won't get into that. But like for that movie, you can keep this in.
Sure.
But um, like when you're on a shot about, and he's like contemplating, like like his decisions and stuff like that. Like the audience feels that, and so like you can have slow pacing, but like my point is like just don't bore the audience.
Yeah, I mean, it all comes down to telling a great story, right?
Yeah,
And the moments being there for a reason and
yeah,
intentionality and yeah, you're not just sitting on the shot because of I don't know, something that you as a director want to hold on for some non-story reason. You know,
yeah,
because there's things that happen with like I could imagine me making a movie and being like, well, I spent 10,000 to get this helicopter and this shot and we did this and it doesn't really work or add to the story, but I leave it in just because I'm like I spent a lot of money on this. I want to
yeah,
show it off. And when really I should probably just cut it because the
yeah.
movie's better without it. But so it's really um, yeah, you wanna be there to tell a great story. So even that, like you said, 50-year-old film still
Yeah.
hitting today is testament to the storytelling. It's like an interesting story is an interesting story,
Yeah.
and keeping us at the edge of our seat, waiting for what's going to happen next, is great storytelling.
Hmm.
I remember what I was going to say.
Cool. I
I
buy you
just
some time.
I just had Max Goldberg on the show on the podcast,
Okay.
and he's the cinematographer that I've worked with. And we were talking
I think
about
I met Max on your feature, I believe, right?
maybe
It's What's on the Inside. Was that your DP?
no, that was Connor.
Oh, okay, maybe not then.
Connor. So, but yeah, I was talking with Max about. I was kind of venting about how I don't like how some camera teams get a little bit too focused on camera department and they don't really think outside their bubble. They're like, "Camera's ready, let's
Like
shoot."
I said, every department thinks
Why
their
why
thing.
aren't we shooting? Camera's ready, or
Yeah,
we're lit. Like, what are we waiting on?
I
It's like,
see.
well,
Yeah,
there are other departments doing stuff too.
yeah,
It's not all about you. And then he reiterated and emphasized that his belief, even as a cinematographer, is that what's in front of the camera is way more important to making the film good, like the actors, the costumes, the art direction, the production design. Like if the camera's not pointing at anything,
hmm,
then it's like the elements that are in front are kind of more important. So
right.
that's what I thought about when you said something in there at some point, but I think it's
Yeah,
good to
I think
reiterate.
I agree in to a certain point, in the sense that like obviously you have to capture that magic, but if it's a little off frame and there's the magic's happening, which is more important, the composition or the magic that's happening inside that frame that's a little off frame? Um,
Sure.
you know,
Yeah, yes. You still want
or are you
to,
gonna choose that shot that's more visually impressive, but the magic's not there?
yeah,
I mean, that's a
you
yeah,
still have to compose it well. And I guess it comes down to too, like when you have a budget,
Mm.
how do you allocate the budget?
Yeah.
Is if you have, let's say, $50,000 and you give half of it to camera and lighting and then small amounts to costume, like you're kind of
Yeah.
setting everybody else up for like, what do we,
What are we shooting? Yeah.
it's like, why don't we flip that and make the badass set and the badass costumes and the camera,
Mm.
like
That's a good
it's
point.
kind of thinking about that kind of stuff.
Mm.
Great. I want to talk about what it's like directing in the Star Trek universe.
So that is cool in the sense that I'm just gonna be frank. It's cool and also limiting in some ways. I got lucky in one sense that my executive producer came from a different background from like traditionally what is animation. Um, he worked in video games and he worked in a lot of like VFX stuff. I think he did a sequence for Harry Potter that was nominated for an Academy Award or something like that. But anyways, my point is that he comes from a different background and then he really believed in the director's vision. So he gave us more leeway than what was usually granted to the animation directors. So we got to see and be more involved in more parts of the process. But like I think because of I don't know if this is kind of dangerous, but I think because of like budgetary reasons, directors in animations are kind of like they just direct storyboards. You know what I mean? Obviously, you have to make that into an edit that works. And in animation, because it's like planning for the main production, it ends up being the film in many ways. But like, obviously, there's like other elements involved, like layout and animation, and there is like voice acting, which like even with the leeway my executive producer gave me, like I didn't get involved in voice acting, which is like a huge part in
Yeah, I was
directing.
gonna ask,
Yeah,
like, what is it? Because yeah, I mean, as I'm watching it, I'm like, okay, what elements is he responsible for?
yeah,
And like that was all, yeah.
yeah,
So you're not there in the room with the actors as they're essentially
yeah,
playing the characters. You're not there for that.
yeah. That I mean, you see my name like big on as directed by, but like I honestly think the system should change where we're involved in that. Um, I feel like because of budgetary reasons, or maybe because of the way it works in TV animation specifically, like we're not involved in that. Um, but luckily I've experienced doing that, like working with actors a lot, like from my own stuff. There's, but that said, like the flip side of it is it was a 3D show and a pretty high budget 3D show um, for an animated TV show at that time, and they were really pushing for like at least especially at the beginning more like epic cinematic camera moves, and the cinematic can cover or like encapsulate so many things, but specifically like Spielbergian like sweeping camera moves and stuff, not like Michael Bay sweeping, but like you know moving the camera moves for the story the way Spielberg does and stuff. So that was really cool and interesting to experiment with, because even in a lot of independent films, like you don't have like the setup. Again, like in my recent short, I was able to do a lot of that because you have one lighting setup where you can cover like the blocking that I blocked out. Um, but so it was really fun to play with that. Um, because on the addition to that is I worked on a lot of 2D animated shows, and because of budget again, like a lot of times we don't move the camera in the 3D space because you have to animate all that out, and then the backgrounds you have to draw out and stuff like that. Nowadays people are experimenting more with 3D backgrounds and stuff, so there's a little more movement. But even then, like on the show, I'm working on Invincible right now and stuff. As much as possible, we try to limit that kind of like crazy camera move and stuff. So that was really fun about Star Trek, and I worked with a great storyboard team, and the editors were great, and I liked working with our writers, the executive producers. Um, they're really nice people. Kevin and Dan Hagman, and Aaron Walke, who's like a Star Trek like super god. He just like knows everything about it. But yeah, it was also really cool to work on something that is beloved and heartfelt. Um, you know, like my executive producers, they're like in love with the Goonies, so it has a lot of that sensibility. And yeah, it broke me in some ways because of the responsibilities that I had to deal with, but like I'm also thankful for the experience.
Ooh, okay. I'm thinking about for the audience at home listening, what can you maybe for those that aren't as familiar but know Star Trek as a whole, can you and for me too. I watched the 2 episodes that you
Okay.
highlighted, but just to I don't know, just to I have some more questions, but what's the premise of the show itself? Who are we
Oh, jeez.
following?
So we're following these like five kids. Five kids? Oh my God. Sorry if I got it wrong. But like like the way the exec producers describe it, it's like a motley group of kids who discover this like legendary starship, and then they get into like Star Trek like adventures.
Okay. So yeah, so the ship that they're on, they're a group of kids in space
Yeah.
living the Star Trek dream essentially, right?
They come from like a underprivileged background. If you see the show,
Mhm.
like they come from a really, in some ways, like horrific backgrounds for like you know there's actually slaves, a lot of
Wow.
them. So like they break free, and then they discover this ship, and then they eventually meet the real Star Trek crew, and get on these like adventures, not like, but Star Trek adventures on their own. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because it is a show developed for Nickelodeon.
Yeah.
Nickelodeon's really big on the title up top.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, this is for kids. And of course, the animation looks like it's for kids. But then watching it, I'm like, this is really, it's still Star Trek.
Awesome.
It's
Thank you.
It's still Star Trek. And I'm like, the lingo is kind of funny. Because I don't know if when it's being written, if it's like, okay, adults are going to be watching this too. Let's make sure this matches continuity wise
Right.
with Star Trek as a whole, because they're saying like the science gets pretty intense.
We had a science advisor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like these characters are like one of the kids will rattle off all this jargon, and I'm like, what's happening? And then one of the kids will be like, I don't know what you just said, but we gotta.
Oh yeah.
So I'm like, okay, that was for the Star Trek nerds, and then the kids that are watching that don't quite understand it can also
Yeah.
still follow along with like, okay, they get the gist of what they're trying to make happen.
I think in some ways it's like a way for the Star Trek lovers to introduce it to their kids.
And that's what I meant to say. Sorry, I
Yeah.
said Star Trek nerd, but yeah, I say that with love as a fellow nerd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I hope I portrayed my show well, but
No, it's cool. So just to get specific on the two that you showed me, I really do want to understand the director role
okay.
in that. I guess that specific show, because like you were kind of alluding to a little bit, directors in animation, like this executive producer allowed a little bit more flexibility than what a traditional animation director might
Okay.
be looking at and involved with. But with this show specifically, and these 2 episodes, let's focus on let's do the body swap episode.
Okay.
Um,
It's been a minute.
so I guess just whatever you might recall. I'm just kind of curious. You mentioned being like in the room working with the writers a little bit,
Yeah,
or
the executive producers who are also the writers,
okay,
and they have like a staff writer on the episode as well.
yeah. Because as I'm watching it, it's a classic. It's a classic fun body swap. One of the kids gets swapped with an adult,
Yeah.
and the hijinks ensues with the kid is on the other ship trying to pretend to be this adult commander, and it's like they're getting into trouble and they're trying to figure out like how to relink and all this kind of stuff. And you have this goofiness of like, okay, how do we portray this grown woman as a kid? And like even just the mannerisms and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, okay, are these like I'm just wondering where the decisions are being made, and being that you're not in the room with the actors delivering lines, I imagine a lot of it is being influenced by the boards or
Mm.
like I don't know the series of operation here. So like,
Okay, so let
what's
me get into that then. Like, obviously, the director has a lot of should have a vision for how that plays out, but like it starts with the executive producers handing off the material that they've written with either the staff writer, or sometimes a lot of times they write the episodes themselves. But like they set the tone of like what the characters should be about, like where they are, and like they even have notes on like how they want like the mannerisms to be, you know. Um, but so like the director would absorb all that information and then hand that off to storyboard artists by breaking off the script into sections. And the board artists would, in a lot of ways, the board artists are like mini directors as well, because they have to do everything. To be honest, they're breaking down the broken down script from the director, and they're taking it and running with it. They're blocking everything. They're thumbnailing it out, storyboarding it. They're blocking all the action. They're animating it, and unlike live action, they're coming up with their like acting choices. And sometimes we have the voice dialogue to help with that, but sometimes they have to do their own scratch or just imagine it before they add scratch. And then so like what the director does is like give guidance based on what he heard during the meetings with the executives and stuff like that. And hopefully he did a good job of dispelling that and also like conveying his vision. Obviously the show has a style that we're going for, which is like kind of like the epic like Spielbergian style. Um, so the board artists do their pass. The director would take that pass, compile it into an episode, would probably like edit, make some preliminary notes, cut stuff here, cut stuff out, maybe add some stuff, and present like an animatic to the executives. And there, the executive would give notes about like how they felt the direction was going, and then the director would take those notes and then again break off each piece to the storyboard artist again. In this specific show, because I had so much to do and because I entrusted my storyboard artist, Adrian Barrios, I call him my storyboard artist, which he was, but like this, you got to meet this guy, by the way. He's like an insane creative director, artist, musician, like like live action filmmaker. I just love this dude. You have to meet him. You got to get him on podcast
let's get him on
sometime.
the
Yeah,
show.
get him on the show sometime. Like most humble guy. But anyways, he was like, it was like insane that I had him as a board artist. Also, I had Gabo. Um, and also I had Ezzy as a storyboard artist, and I also had a lot of like freelance help, like Sam Tung. I'm gonna like name drop a little here because this guy just rolled off a movie with Christopher Nolan. His Odyssey, Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey, as a storyboard artist, his sole storyboard artist.
Wow,
So like,
that's
I
cool.
mean, that's kind of name dropping, but like, I was pretty impressed and happy for him. So I'm kind of celebrating him here. But yeah, I had people like those guys. There's other people like Cheska. There's so many people. I'm sorry if I forgot, but it's not that I'm forgetting. It's just there's so many names that helped out on the show. I hope I didn't forget any like permanent board artists right now, but it we changed hands a lot. There was a guy named EB, and he left for X-Men. And so like there was a lot of changeover, so it's hard to tell. It depends like what depending on the time, like the team was always shifting. My friend David Maximo, who's an assistant director on X-Men right now, he also helped out as well. And there's a lot of names, but anyway, so like I would give it back to the board artist, and oh no, my point is like to go back, like I entrusted them to kind of like decipher the notes themselves and like do their own revisions for the most part, unless it was a like, for the lack of better word, like something that I felt like I needed to attack myself, like I let them kind of handle it, and then afterwards when I would have to make another animatic for the executives, it's called a cleanup pass usually. Then I would make some like revisions, and then it would go back to the executives. I'd get more notes, and then the cycle continued on like 2 or 3 more rounds. Um, um, I'm not gonna get deeper into the process, but like after that, like it goes overseas and it goes into the layout phase where they block it out in CG, and then after that's approved, they start animating. And then because again I had more access, I gave notes on the animation, and like I worked with the animation directors. I'm not sure how much they like that, but like because traditionally, I get again in animation, this kind of collaboration isn't always there.
Yeah.
They said it was helpful, but I'm sure they were also getting a lot of layers of notes from executives, and
Gotcha.
yeah,
Gotcha. The almost the too many cooks syndrome.
yeah. But again, I feel like the director should have that vision, and like um, in the best case scenario, even the guys up top, the exec producers and stuff, they might have they might input their vision, but they should like kind of entrust the director to kind of lead all that. Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, when you say executive producer, the other term that I'm hearing, it sounds very essentially showrunner.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Showrunners.
yeah, because the showrunner of a show is the arbiter of tone
Yeah.
and story, and they have the largest scope vision of them all.
Absolutely.
So it makes sense that like, okay, you get handed off this specific story, or many specific stories, but you're
Mhm.
kind of executing on behalf of a larger vision, and it makes sense that there's kind of like those additional steps of like checking in with them constantly and
Yeah.
making sure this works for what they want. But yeah, it makes sense. It's like, okay, you're handing this off to me. Um, that said, I want to be involved with as much of it as I can.
Right.
Like it's kind of like what I'm hearing from you is you're putting yourself in chairs with the director hat on that maybe other directors aren't doing. Is it because you want to
Well, not only is it more fun for the director, I just think it's the director's job to, as Ron Howard puts it, like to be the keeper of the story. And I know it's a little different in TV than like, you know, traditional features or shorts and stuff like that. But that's the way I think
Oh,
of
it's
like
cool.
what the director should do.
Yeah, plus, yeah, if they allow that experience, like yeah, take advantage while you
Yeah.
have that hat on. It's like, no, I want to be there. It's like they're like, hey, Sung, they don't normally go in that room. It's like I'm gonna go in that room.
Yeah.
I'm going because yeah, that sounds
Yeah.
pushing for those other experiences. Great. Well, that's Star Trek Prodigy.
Yeah. Shout out to Gabbo who did the fight scene in Star Trek Prodigy. I only like cut it and made it sharper, and we had some notes that she did an amazing job. So
For that season 2 episode you shared.
yeah,
Yeah,
so
that was episode 3, season 2 was
okay.
the fight scene you're talking about. You're saying?
Oh, it was just crazy because she's so creative that like she pretty much like she's not even supposed to go into this route, but like because she kind of did you saw the hieroglyphics like as they went down the tunnel. She kind of like designed that.
Yeah.
um the designers might not like this, but like she showed that in the storyboards, and I do believe it heavily influenced like the final design of like what it looked like on set. So like she's just an amazing creative as well. She's a prominent creature designer and director in her own right because she graduated from Gobelins from like I think they at Gobelins they direct their own shorts and stuff like that. So
Yeah. No, the fight scene was super cool. I was really impressed with
cool. She did,
with
yeah.
with how I mean I don't watch that much animation these days,
Okay.
so my expectations were actually kind of low, being that it was like, oh, this is a Nickelodeon show and it's television. But then watching it, I'm like, oh no, this is like a fully thought out action sequence here with like really cool moments and visuals, and I'm like, oh, nice, this is nice.
It was pretty
It
cool.
was fun and high stakes, and I was
Emotional.
I didn't even know the characters really. I didn't spend much time with them, but I was like, I fully understood the context and what was going on, and it was fun to see.
Awesome.
Okay, I want to shift to a simpler topic.
Okay.
A curiosity of mine, and let's talk. Can we talk a little bit about the theatrical experience?
Theatrical experience.
Going out to the movie theater.
Okay, yeah.
And I've seen a couple movies with you as of late. And,
Yes.
And a theme for this is a smaller thing, but I want to understand where it comes from. I think it's really cool to see. But regarding going to a movie, you have. I'll point out that something consistently is like others around us. You have done some shushing to like other
I'm sorry.
other audience, not to me, to other audience members around. Like I know there's been people, because these days it seems like there seems to be a little bit of an issue of how people conduct themselves at a movie theater.
Yes.
But you don't take it. And I wanna hear. Is there?
Do you think that we should take that?
No.
Okay.
No, I if anything, you're a cool example to me of like, okay, this is like the way that you go about it feels right to me, and it feels like
respectful, at least, yeah.
As respectful as one can be,
right,
in that kind of environment.
I'm not telling them to like shut up or something like that. Yeah.
No, it's but I want to hear about how has that always been the case, or have you developed that pattern? And tell me more about how you view being at the movie theater and what it means to you to be there.
I just love being at the theater, and I feel like I'm being a little pretentious, but it can be like, Spike Lee calls it the church of cinema. It can be a sacred experience. It's a place where we're all dreaming together. And you can give a little leeway, for example, like the way people respond, like laughing at the inopportune moments and stuff. That's the way they react. That's fine. But if you're like actively having your phone on and actively talking loudly, so you're interrupting the experience, you're not only interrupting that dream that everyone's having, but people also pay for it if you look at it like, commercially. Like, it's not fair, And I think part of it has to do with that too, like, standing up to bullies, and you're not doing the right thing here. Yeah.
No, I like it. The movie that stands to mind is we saw this Academy Award nominated film called The Brutalist.
Okay.
And that one, I think because of, I know the people were talking kind of the row behind us a little way to the right, kind of in your direction. And The Brutalist is a long movie.
Right.
And it's got long stretches of like quiet and stuff. So it's definitely apparent when
someone's interrupting.
Yeah, it's like we're trying to live in this space, and how dare you interrupt my artist viewing experience here? This is an art film.
Yeah. Which is why I do like to go to theaters where they try to like honor that. Like Alamo Draft House, they have a strict no phone policy, and I know ArcLight used to be like that as well. I miss that theater. Hope they come back.
Yeah, ArcLight was nice.
And generally, like if it's not egregious, I try to be like, whatever. as long as it's not interrupting me. But like in one example, I was watching Gladiator 2, and this young lady had her phone on the whole time, and I ignored it as much as possible. I'm like, whatever, she's on her phone, that's her thing. But like, it was within my vision, and it was interrupting my experience quite a bit. So I had to say something to her, and then her mom turns over to me, and she says, "Please speak directly to me." With a lot of attitude. And then I said, "Oh, that's fine. I'm sorry if that's the case, but like, will you please ask your daughter to turn the phone off?" And she was rude about it, but long story short, after they left, my daughter and I saw their seats, and they had like their popcorn and their like drinks still there, and it's yeah, I don't want to like get into
Yeah.
that, but
Well, we can. This is what we're here for. No, it reminds me of the old saying of how you do anything is how you do everything. So being the fact that
Interesting.
they were kind of being rude to or what's the word? Like inconsiderate to their environment, essentially. It's like, okay, well, yeah, they're talking and also they're leaving their trash behind, and it's kind of just built into the whole
Yeah.
existence in a way.
It was just an indication as a director and as someone who's always like, especially making your own films, as someone who's always like researching the human experience, you obviously have to have empathy and not judge a book by its cover. But it was just interesting that in this case, like, they were kind of like supplementing the way they were being rude about the
Yeah.
movie experience by the way they were treating the workers that have to clean up after them and stuff like that.
Yeah. So, being that this is a show for listeners to listen to, I want to ask you, being that you, if, can you give me slash the listener some tips on how to go about handling, like what are some aspects that you try to do when interacting with those that are bothering or interrupting your experience at a movie theater? Like, what are different tactics that you've tried that have worked for us other people to explore and kind of hold each other accountable to this experience?
Oh, right. So generally, as much as possible, I try to let things go. Actually, even though you've experienced me like, so actually, when you've experienced me asking someone to stop something, it's when it got like out of hand. But a case in point where I was watching this movie called Accidental Getaway Driver, and this person was tapping his foot, and it was like interrupting my experience. After like about 30 minutes, it was getting really bad, and I asked him, like, just politely. I think that's the issue. Just as with directing, as with anything in life, like, you just remind people and ask them in a very respectful way, would you mind not doing that? And this person actually was surprised. I don't think he knew he was doing that. He's like, "A tapping foot? Who's doing that?" And then he stopped though, because he was the one that was doing it. His partner, I believe, like his lady friend, said like, "You're tapping your foot," and then that case stopped. So yeah, so usually that's the case. It's not always the case, because if you're sometimes like people are like 4 rows ahead, and they're like recording the whole movie, which is illegal, by the way. I'm thinking, should I go report this? But he's like a 13-year-old kid. Do I want to send him to jail? Because that's like, I don't know, like that's a pretty big
Copyright
offense.
law, yeah.
Yeah, like in that case, it was during Alien Romulus, by the way. I just let it slide, but but I don't know.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is, okay, there's stages to it. Stage
Yeah.
one is noticing it. Stage two is like not responding immediately. It's
Right.
like it would almost, yeah, that's the pendulum going the other way. As soon as anything happens, you're like, hey, stop that.
Yeah,
It's like, bro,
Yeah.
I tapped twice, and you're like, I know where's this going. So yeah, it's the once it continues, then you kind of have, you're giving the benefit of the doubt is
Right.
what it sounds like, and then eventually you're polite about it as best you can.
Yeah, I mean, the devil in me is like, and I jokingly tell my daughter, like, I want to carry like a small squirt gun and like, sir, yeah. That would be horrible. That's going in the other direction, like you're mentioning.
That's bringing the tactics that work on the cats to the humans. Okay. Yeah. Because it is hard to politely shush. A polite shush is a difficult is a difficult fence to ride. But yeah, it has been interesting observing that
Yeah.
for the 2 screenings we've gone to recently.
Did I do it on both?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
I was there for the Getaway Driver one, Accidental Getaway Driver.
Oh, right. Oh, did you notice me doing that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I can tell I'm I don't know about hypersensitive, but I'm sensitive to the experience of those around me.
Right.
So as soon as I'm watching the movie, I'm into it, and then I can feel you come out of it. I could feel that, and like I can see you turn your head or adjust your body,
Right.
and I'm like, okay. And then I can see you do it like 5 times before you do the shush. So I can watch it in real time, being like, okay, he's assessing when a good time is to shush this person. But yeah, I can feel it, and that was I went to a movie yesterday. I finally saw Companion.
Okay.
I really enjoyed it.
Awesome.
But there was somebody behind me, similar to the foot tapping. Like I think they had like rustly pants, and they were like rubbing their like.
Yeah, some people just can't help it, and that's why to give some like grace to that. But if it's actively interrupting my experience, then I have to like.
Yeah. Yeah, we were nearing the end of the film, and I'm like, "What is this rustling sound?" And then I like put my ear closer to like the wedge of the chair, and I'm like, "Okay, there's something happening behind."
Yeah.
And then instead, I just kind of moved like this, and it kind of like blocked enough of the sound, and I was like, "If only I was more like Sung, I could have
just channel me, and they just use it.
Hey, you your leg there. Can you stop moving your leg? I know this is a stressful
carry
scene.
a squirt gun.
But yeah, that was a small thing. I was just you really enjoy the theatrical experience, like you said. You don't want to elevate it too much, but it is elevated.
Right.
What did you call it? You're like it's
Spike Lee calls it the Church of Cinema.
Okay.
I don't think he's specifically talking about the theatrical experience, but I kind of use those words.
I think
See that movie though, Accidental Getaway Driver.
Go watch it. It's in theaters,
Thumbs up,
right?
right?
Yeah, thumbs up. It's in theaters, right? I think it's in.
Yeah,
it's got a
I think it's
limited
playing
run.
right now. Yeah.
But check it out. We enjoyed it. I do want to talk about how you approach Instagram and social media. Another thing that I've noticed, and this was something that came on more of my radar when you tagged me in a story and you had like a little blurb about like catching up, and you know
Right.
like, it was really nice and thoughtful, and I really appreciated it.
Oh, awesome.
And then I've also seen that's kind of you're consistently shouting out other
Right.
creatives, sharing a little bit about how you view them, how they inspire you, or otherwise, and it's a cool thing. But can you tell me about
Yeah.
that?
I'm glad you noticed that, and thank you. It's just part of it is like trying to create our own industry and like raise up the people that deserve it, I feel like, instead of being run top down by people that might be in power, but and they might make good movies, but again, coming to that whole thing about like they're not good people and it's not really people I want to raise up. So I thought it'd be cool to like raise up people that inspire me. If they're like cinematic heroes of mine, I will mention that. I will be very specific about it. Like I would say, so like when I meet someone like Sean Baker, for example, like I don't know him personally. He seems like a cool guy. There was a little thing thing recently where like online they're saying that he didn't want to go union, so he didn't treat his crew right or whatever. I don't want to get into that.
I've seen that too.
But he's a cinematic hero of mine, but like I didn't know that other side of him, and I don't know all the details to that. But what I will mention is what does inspire me about his actions, or like some advice he gave me. For example, I think I mentioned when I posted him up, it's not about like, oh, I got to meet him, which is cool, but like it's that like he shared this advice about drone footage. He even though he has a small budget, he used a helicopter. I'm like, why the hell did you use a helicopter? And he answered me in person, and he said it's about having that human touch, which I thought was cool. And he referenced like there was a shot in Scarface where the helicopter. I think I got to rewatch that film, but like either was pulling out. Anyways, that inspired that house shot where instead of using a drone, he used the helicopter. I say just save the budget, use the drone, and like shake the camera a little bit to make it look like the helicopter. No, just kidding.
Yeah,
I'm not funny. A 4-time Academy Award winner, so his choices make sense.
I mean, that is kind of funny to think about with like, okay, if you're talking indie filmmaking, the drone is the indie solution to that same shot where it's like, okay, but the chopper feels more
really important.
The chopper feels more indie because it's got a human touch.
Oh, interesting. Yeah,
but it's actually not the indie solution.
Yeah,
that's how I took that.
I mean, and I believe like when we're making films, I guess I'm processing this as I'm talking about it with you, but like you're allowed to like play with your toys when you get the chance a little bit. Yeah. He's been wanting to do that helicopter shot ever since he's seen Scarface, maybe, like now he has the chance to. So why not allocate the budget for that? But that said, man, we're getting political here. Like, are you, if it's true that he was treating his crew coldly because he didn't want to go union and like save money, like is this all gonna get cut out? But like, what I mean? Like, no, let's keep it, but like let's talk about it. Like, I mean, like, is that helicopter shot that important, or can you pay your artist a little more money?
Right. I mean, there's different layers because we're talking about him directing the film Anora, which won Best Picture.
Love the film, by the way.
I know there's different tiers to the Anora issues that people have. Right. There's the money spent by Neon to do all the publicity for it. That is much greater than even the budget for the film, which is a whole thing. And then there's how it flipped from non-union to union, in which I don't remember what I read. I read like one thing about it, where you have to fill me in on like what the story is. Do you know the story off the top of your head on like what went down?
So in like the little I understand about it, it's just that like he wanted to keep it non-union as much as possible to keep the costs down. But like, the crew supposedly was like working like overtime and like even by the DGA and SAG and stuff, he and his cast got like full protection, like as far as like health benefits and stuff. And also like I don't think, yeah, like I'll just leave it there. All this other specifics, like I don't want to get into because like I'm not that knowledgeable about it. But long story short, the crew wasn't getting treated the way they felt that they were supposed to be treated, and then they went union, and then supposedly afterwards, like he was treating them coldly, and so that was what I read on Instagram.
Okay. All right. Well, it's. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out how to talk about it because I'm like, that is a tale as old as indie time. Indie films, traditionally, it's about
make it with no budget, or low budget.
Yeah, you don't have. I mean, even if you hear the number, because the number that's out in the presses or whatever, it's like Anora was made for $6 million. I'm sure flipping it to a union bloated the budget a lot. Like it wasn't going to be that much if it stayed non-union.
Right.
They had to go find. Like my understanding is that he had to go and find more money to be able to flip it to union and pay everybody. But I know I have been a part of productions where fear from the directors is a big part of like. I think I was a part of like a $300,000 feature, and even that. Those directors were terrified about like if this thing flips, we can't make this movie.
Interesting.
But that's 300,000.
Yeah.
If you're talking about, I don't know, having 3 million or 4 million, I mean, it's like, yeah, what's the priority here? It's hard to not look at the filmmaker or the decision maker and be like, what are you prioritizing?
Yeah.
Is the priority living wages for the team that you're bringing on, which means you're going to have half the time to make the movie, or or are you going to prioritize shooting more and having less crew, or like that's the priorities really shine when you do have like a budget. Like you could with that amount of money, you do have options. And I think the other issue too was like they were filming in New York City,
Yeah.
which is traditionally
all
really expensive.
union. And supposedly they're all supposed to be union if you're shooting there, I think. Yeah.
I don't know, but okay.
No. Yeah.
Yeah, but New York City plays a part in it too. They're making a city in New York City. There's millions of dollars in the budget, and you're public facing that making indie films is a high priority for you, and you want to be making these films for a long time, and you wished more people made indie films. Like he's had those speeches at the multiple awards. So it's a classic like put your money where your mouth is kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it is tricky.
It's tricky, and I think it's a lesson for us as indie filmmakers to again try to like recognize I like this about you. You're always trying to raise the status of your collaborators and stuff like that, and like that includes like livable wages and stuff. So we want to get there, and like as much as possible have that. The art is important, but I feel like the lives of people are more important, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I'm thinking about myself and budgets. We've talked about, I made my first movie for $12,000.
Oh, I thought it was 10, but I mean, it's a small difference, but still. Yeah.
It's essentially close enough in this. Made the first movie for $12K, which it's mostly volunteer and people working for nothing or next to nothing comparative to what they should be paid, and then balancing making sure it's worth their time and they're getting something out of it, and hopefully keeping them around so that way they can you can continue work with them, elevate, and then the second film was, let's just say, double that, and it's 3 weeks in New Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
Same kind of thing. People volunteering time. Money's going to equipment and food.
Yes.
And that's basically it.
Mm.
And then I go to having a $50,000 budget, so double it again for the short.
Yeah.
And that now it's like, okay, now there's it feels like there's actual money to play with.
Okay.
And that turns into 4 days of filming.
Mm-hmm.
And that's still not paying people union rates.
Interesting.
So it's like, okay, now, or like even I didn't get to have a script supervisor, for instance, which I love. I would love to have a script supervisor, but it's like, oh, cut them out of the budget because I'm a script supervisor and I could be mindful and put that money into Steadicam or whatever. And so I imagine now, as you increase budget,
mm-hmm.
I think about, okay, now I have $500,000. I can probably I can do another 3 weeks in New Mexico, and I spent the same amount of time with maybe a little bit more people, but the money all got spent. And I did it with little money and I did it with big money. But the difference was people got paid on the $500,000. And maybe they even got to have their families out there with them, which I think could be important too. You don't really want to be asking, like even, I don't know, you can speak on how you think about being away from family is, but if you can have the option for like, hey, we'll bring you out for 4 weeks and we can rent you an Airbnb for your full family to stay in and they can be around, I think that's a nice option to give people too.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, money gets absorbed quickly. Without much changing in front of the camera. Just the paying people absorbs a lot. So I don't know. Sean Baker's been making movies for a long, long time.
Yeah, 30 years, I believe. Right?
In the indie space specifically. So yeah, hearing him talk, I listened to a podcast. He understands indie loopholes and how to get away with stuff, and there are tricks to it, and some of them I just don't like. But
Oh, and you said that. Okay.
I'll just
Oh, I love it.
say it
I'm
makes
bringing the attention on you.
it makes me squirm a little bit. It's just I'll say that I have my own fears, and maybe this is okay stuff to do, and I think maybe I could be more comfortable with it, or maybe it's something I never want to do. The thing I'm thinking about is there are scenes in Honora where like the boyfriend goes missing or the husband goes missing,
Yeah.
and they're trying to track him down, and they plop a camera outside of a diner and shoot into the diner. Like they're stealing shots where it's like, okay, the actors go in there and improvise looking for the guy, and they're interacting with people, and they do the scene, and it's kind of funny, and you're getting genuine reactions. Hey, do you know where? Have you seen this guy? Have you seen this guy? Have you seen this guy? And these people are like, no, I don't know who is this? Get out of my face! Like all that kind of stuff they're saying,
Mhm.
and then cut the director goes in there and he's like, hey everybody, you were just a part of a scene, we're making a movie, these are actors, thank you so much for being a part, also here, can you sign these release forms?
Oh, interesting.
So none of those people got paid to be a
Right.
part of that scene, and the way to go about it is you'd have to, if you did it quote unquote
Correctly.
correctly, that would cost a lot of money to do. You're
Yeah.
paying all the background. It's like a whole setup. And then it's over in like, super quick. So there's those little tricks to the trade.
That trick specifically, do you agree with, or that you feel like you can get away with?
I don't like it.
You don't like it.
He did bring up that it bit him in the butt once.
Oh, because someone wouldn't sign it.
Yeah, he tried to do that in L.A. on a Los Angeles bus
Was
for
it Tangerine or
for the
something?
movie Tangerine. Yeah, and he's like, people are a little bit more savvy out in Los Angeles.
I see.
Somebody didn't sign it,
Mm.
and he couldn't use the shot or something. So
Did he
he's like,
want money? Person.
I don't. He didn't elaborate,
Okay.
but I could imagine it. Even with they could just say no, even with the money. But yeah, that makes me nervous. I'm more of the be up front. I would rather, it kind of ruins the scene in a way. It's like, I don't know, going into the restaurant, getting permission from the owner,
Mm-hmm.
talking to everybody. Hey, we're gonna pull off a scene here. Just continue your
Be
thing.
normal,
At
but everyone's like,
at some point, some actors are gonna come in and do this thing.
yeah.
Everybody sign the release, so that way I know I can use this, and or whatever. Or like, okay, you're not signing it. Okay, you're signing it. Okay, play this side of the room. It kind of like, I feel better in that, but the reactions are definitely not going to be potentially as authentic. Like
Yeah.
it introduces potential performance issues.
Yeah, I agree.
That's just some thoughts.
Yeah, it's yeah.
Okay.
What's up?
I forgot we tangented off there a little bit, but
All good.
you're talking about elevating and why you share the way you share
right.
on Instagram. But was there anything else on that?
Just real quick, I just would like to, like, I'm not traditionally a social media person, but social media has been helpful for me recently because, like, I do find this like renewed faith in like the filmmaking world and like the people in it and people like you, and like I think we're willing to help each other and stuff like that. So I think it's a good tool. Like sometimes I've never met people in person, or I've met them long time ago and then I reconnect with them, and like it's just a good tool to keep that filmmaking community alive, I feel like. And again, I just want to celebrate people that are inspiring and amazing to me. To be honest, just being real frank here, I'm trying to cut out. Like I would never elevate someone who I felt was. So I'm not doing it just for show. Like if it's like some like great executive producer and like I took a selfie with him, but I feel like he doesn't treat his people or crew right, I wouldn't post it up there. Um, so I'm really elevating people that are that I feel like are deserving and that I feel like are true artists like yourself and that inspire me again. Like I'm kind of repeating myself
Yeah,
here,
you're
but
you're
like
you're trying to
but I
you're
love you guys and I want to like show other people that, you know.
yeah, yeah, you're being intentional with how you share and what you share.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I did bring it up, but I would be curious to hear the answer to how do you feel about how family plays into the industry you've chosen, and like
Oh.
from like directing and potentially being away and like that sort of stuff. How do you balance family?
So, like, I didn't balance that out at all for my first 10 years, especially since I was so focused in the animation industry before I started making indie films. And now I'm trying to, like, ramp that up, both animated and live action. But I didn't, and I really regret it. So now I choose life, you know. So, like, whenever there's an event, for example, one of the biggest moments I regret is like I stayed home to draw instead of going to this baseball game with my daughter, and my mom took a picture of her, and I wish I was there. I don't even know what I was drawing, but I know I would have remembered that experience with her for life. So it's really heartbreaking. Um, I could have come home and finished my drawing, you know.
Yeah.
So that's how, so now I try to balance it more. Recently, I've been so busy, I've been noticing that like I get to spend a lot of time with my wife because she's up later and also like she's also in filmmaking. She writes a lot now. Um, and like, you know, right now, recently, I'm trying to elevate her to like a executive producer position. So like, even on my last film, like, you know, I was kind of coaching her to like, oh, this might be better if you write notes like this where it's more actionable or blah blah blah, you know. But like, so I get to spend a lot of time with her. But like, I've been noticing that like I haven't seen my kids in a bit. Like I see them at home, but I haven't spent time with them. So on Friday, instead of there was another screening by the accidental getaway driver, but I skipped that. I wanted to get back there because I wanted to ask a specific question about one of the scenes that's powerful. There's a tide pool scene, and I wanted to ask about that. I'll talk about that with you later because I don't want to ruin the film for the audience. But yeah, so I decided, yeah, I'm gonna stay home, and play Mario Party with my kids,
Hmm.
and like, yeah.
Yeah. Um, no, that sounds. I'm okay.
If I may, like as far as like shooting elsewhere, like you know Oliver Stone going to like the forest, like somewhere to like shoot his war movie or something. I don't think I'm down for that right now. Like I want to shoot in LA, so my stories are kind of based around stuff I can shoot here. Maybe in the future, if I can fly them all out and I'm rich and famous. Not that I really care about that stuff. I only care about it to elevate my peers and also be able to afford stuff like having the whole family go out there and stuff like that. Um, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. I mean that sounds. Yeah. Again, what I'm hearing is families become a higher priority, and you're being
Yeah,
very mindful of how you approach your own creative work to make sure that there's room for that time.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And friends as well, and seeing people like you, and that's why you know
Yeah.
we reconnected recently, and it's been great.
Yeah, I think so. Okay. Um, yeah, I think film is a tough place to do all that balancing. So, I mean, it's tough as it is, just as an industry, and then you pile on trying to make that work and
Right.
keep the family intact at the same time and keep that growing. It's a lot. Um, okay. Well, we're pretty much at time.
Awesome.
We're at time. I will let's wind down with just hearing. I like to ask about like kind of the classic, like what's coming next, what are you working on, what are you excited about, even looking at the rest of the year. I know we've we've talked a little bit about some things that we might dabble into, but I want
Can
the
we
other.
talk about that here,
Yeah,
or?
sure, go for it.
Yeah, like Eddie and I were talking about. So gave him a big shout out to LA's Directors Lab, but like Eddie's already doing stuff like that on his own. He's like workshopping with his actors and just experimenting. Like, you just like bring your own camera and have an actor and you improvise and like just shoot a little scene here or something. So I think it would be cool to start a little workshop on our own. That's like, that where creatives can kind of like explore their craft without making it like too commercial or anything. The only reason any of it would be commercial is so that it can sustain the workshop itself or something, like in a small way. But like, I do believe what the LA's Directors Lab is doing is amazing, and I feel like, like um, everyone involved in that should be compensated, which is what's so great about it and stuff like that. But he's already like, even though it's that workshop is established, like Eddie has already been doing it, and like we'd like to like kind of expand that in a small circle somehow. Yeah, is that a good introduction to
Yeah,
what we were talking about?
yeah, I think so. To get more specific about it, I know the way that I look at it for those, like, this is something that is very flexible in terms of like budgetary involvement. I think like there's
Okay.
like we kind of something you mentioned it via text was like, but let's start small.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that sounds like the smartest way of going about it, like building up the momentum, making sure that you have the right people involved. Like, don't
Yeah.
jump in too big. And so, like, the way that I even pitched it to an actor buddy of mine, and
Okay.
he's like, I would totally be down for something like that.
That's so awesome.
Um, and the base idea is essentially like I like the idea of a weekend experience. So it's almost like you treat it like two shoot days where you have like we essentially we if we orchestrated it ourselves, we're kind of like essentially producers
Right.
of the thing, and we find a location that's exciting to us that maybe has a lot of flexibility to it, and um, I don't know if we'd write the scenes or if
Hmm.
we just write bullets on like scene ideas that aren't fully written out that we could explore with actors, and so it's essentially find a location, kind of figure out how big we want it, aka do we want to try to recruit a DP or multiple DPs, and how many cast do we want to play with? Do we rotate? What is it, a 2 day experience for everybody, or like there's lots of ways to go about it, but essentially the cost of being there is your time,
Hmm.
which I think is already a lot to ask for. Um, is where I feel like it's essentially asking for time donation, and then splitting the cost of the like an even split across the cost of the
Okay.
location is like essentially it. And then potentially maybe
Like food or
yeah,
yeah,
food, um,
some equipment.
camera gear. I
Yeah.
don't know,
Yeah.
lighting. I don't know. Um, but I have heard of very successful productions where they'll bust out like a full season of a YouTube series in 2 days just because they have a ton of actors that want to play and just scenes they're shooting and they just shoot it out and have a ton of fun. And you come out with like 10 episodes of a thing or 10
Hmm.
scenes, or in our case, it might be, you know, 10 different variations of two scenes. Like who
Yeah.
knows what
That's
it looks
yeah.
like.
Hmm.
But buying, I think the having a location to go, it sounds really exciting to me. With like, okay, everybody has to go somewhere and show up to something and buy in a little bit, and being that it's evenly split makes it feel good to me.
Oh,
But
if I can jump in, I think the cool thing about this is it's an opportunity to maybe, like, again, bring in people that we believe in but don't know, doesn't have as much experience as us and stuff like that. One thing that I did feel during the fires this year is how helpless I felt, despite like having worked in the industry for so long and like not being able to achieve my goals as far as like, when you're a kid, you were thinking, oh, I'll have some dent in that climate change problem, you know,
Mhm.
and whatnot. But I feel like if we can help the next generation or even like our peers somehow so that they have more power and agency, that would be cool. I'm talking this out with you live, but I think that would be a cool like side mission of like this thing.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, because I've
Yeah.
met directors like not before it was just like, oh, I accumulated this knowledge with so much investment in my time, energy, money, but like it's like, you know what? Here's what I know. You guys do what you want with it, and then you take it and like run off, or and if you can't even you know, do better, maybe hire us in the future, but
Hmm.
like let's let the young generation have that power.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I definitely very much enjoy um, the education process and giving, yeah, sharing, sharing that.
Yeah.
One thing that makes me think about is diversifying the pool too, with like, yeah, having some newcomers, like you said,
With some experienced
and then
people, yeah.
having people even with more experience than you or I, like,
That would be cool.
it's like, okay, can we talk? I'm just saying that. Can James Cameron show up for one of the days and just hang out and direct one of the scenes? And like, that's something for us to watch too.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, something that has bugged me, and that's why I moved away from Reno to LA in the first place, was I was tired of being the one bringing people together and knowing the most. Like, I wanted to be around more people who
Right.
had more experience. And this is a good opportunity to be like, hey, I love your work. Come hang out for a day or half a day, or like, yeah, actors to elevate, yeah, putting people with more experience in around people with lesser experience helps pull it helps
Yeah.
pull us all up the rising tides lifts
I
all
agree with
boats.
you. At the same time, like it would be cool if those people are able to join in, but like I think you're at a level where you're bringing people with diverse experiences. For example, you
Yeah.
didn't know some stuff about animation, and me approaching a scene a certain way because of my animation background might hopefully like
Yeah.
make you see things in a different. And then obviously you coming from like this like first AD, your own features, and like even just like the way you organize a feature by yourself, like in the editing process, like all that sounds exciting and new to me. And I feel like you've grown to a point where, like, just by watching our peers, we can like grow.
Yeah.
So, like, yeah,
Yeah, I agree.
yeah.
I agree. That's a good point. Great. So if you're interested in signing up, yeah,
Then,
if you've made it this far, reach out to Sung or to me and let us know that you're actually down for something like that, and we'll keep you in mind because
cool.
I think that's a good place to start. I enjoy, I very much enjoy people reaching out with actionable stuff. Is like, hey, I watched this thing, and
Yeah, I
like
like
that's
that.
really
And also,
helpful.
it means that they invested this much time to watch your show and like to like listen to what we've talked about. So that's something.
It's very much something. Thank
Yeah,
you.
appreciate it.
Okay, so all right, and then how we're still in the winding down of the
Okay, cool,
episode.
cool.
What else are you looking forward to, and
I'm
what are you
working on
pushing for?
a feature right now, but it's taking longer than I thought. So I want to continue to refine my voice even further with shorts. I'm continuing to make them, but like I'd love to. I'm really trying to make the next step, make it to the next step, so I can provide proper like budgets and pay for like people. But obviously, it's gonna take time to get there. But like I think part of it is also attacking it the right way, finding the right producer and selling it to the audience so like they'll buy it. And yeah, I just think maybe like thinking a little bigger and a little more commercially while keeping your artistic integrity is the way to go. I'm also watching a lot of films just to catch up on my education as much as like I've been blabbing about them, went to a video store called the Videotech recently. It's in Highland Park, but like they have like hard to find DVDs and Blu-rays of like classic films and stuff like that. And I just looked at their library and I just felt like I don't know anything, you know.
So much film to watch.
Yeah.
So many movies out there, and the hard to find ones are they don't exist on the streamers or anything.
Yeah, there are even on Criterion. Sometimes it's not on there.
That's cool. Okay, last question.
Okay.
If people want to, like we mentioned, reach out and let us know you've listened and that you're interested, where can people find you and keep up with you?
I'm on Instagram a lot, like Shin 9482 SUNGSHIN 9482. If you message me, I'll probably respond.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have the link in the description as well. But cool.
Cool.
All right.
Thank you so much for doing this.
For sure. Thanks for watching. Make sure you leave a like. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you share on whichever platform you're checking this out on. It helps the show. And yeah, thanks again for being on, and thanks for watching.
Appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.